This conference will now be recorded.
So yeah, like I was saying, this is the basics of how to set up an entity and create a firm license, because those are the steps you have to take. Number one, if you want to get paid as an LLC or a corporation, which can provide a lot of tax benefits. I can tell you that personally, I am set up as an S Corp, have been for, I don't even know, 6, 8 years now. Everything I make gets paid to my corporation, which then pays me a salary. And it involves a lot more accounting. So this is definitely something you want to talk about with your accountant or CPA before you just switch and think you're going to pay yourself a salary. But it definitely provides some tax benefits. I have a separate bank account. I use my business card for MLS dues, marketing, all that kind of stuff. So I can tell you the first year that I did my taxes with my S corporation, I realized that the previous years I had not deducted nearly enough expenses. So when you've got them in an actual separate account, you use that card for all business expenses, and you can, take clients out to dinner. I probably get a little creative with some of my expenses, but they're all in that separate card, so they're easy to track. And if anything's wrong, I can always have my CPA fix it later. But yeah, so basics. First step is you've got to set up the entity. You can't do anything else until you've got the business entity. These are live links. They will take you directly to the page that you need. So I've got that right here. I think the Secretary of State will finally let you do this online. I have not actually filled out this paperwork myself in quite a few years now, but I believe you may be able to submit it online. But anyway, that link will take you to the page you need for the corporation or an LLC. Those are basically the two options you have for what we do. You'll either be a corporation, and most likely you want to elect for S Corp status, or an LLC. Figuring out which one you want, they do have, this link will take you to a comparison chart, so you can compare the setups of the different companies, different structures. S Corp, LLC, again, those are probably the only two you'd be looking at. But if you want to go over your numbers and figure out which one's the right one for you, you need to talk to your accountant. And that's not, not the kind of question that I could answer for you. But those are the two that agents would typically be looking at. So normally, I'm assuming, I don't know if they're back in the office or not, but if you go to the southwest corner of the Capitol and you cross the street, there's a small set of doors right there at the corner of West Morgan and Salisbury Street. And if you walk straight ahead, you can hand deliver these forms, and the staff will tell you right there. They don't want to waste their time processing your forms if there's a mistake on it. So they will tell you right there if there's a mistake, and they'll tell you to step aside and fix it and then come back to them. So, we are lucky. We're here in the Capitol, or at least nearby the Capitol. If you're feeling unsure, you can always take them in person. And it also, of course, eliminates the mail. So, if you hand deliver the documents, you'll typically get confirmation that they've been processed within a day or two. They're pretty quick. So again, the cost up here, it's $125 for both of them. So you can see why an attorney charging you $600 to $1,000 is probably not a good deal. Next step, for you to get paid as your entity, you've got to get a tax ID from the IRS. So again, super simple. This link will take you right to the page. It's called an EIN, an employer identification number. This can be done all online, and if I'm not mistaken, as long as there's nothing unusual, I think you can get your EIN basically as soon as you finish the application. I think it will generate one for you so that you're ready to go with your tax ID right away. So again, EIN, that's how you're allowed to get paid and report income to the IRS under your entity instead of you personally. Third step, you need your firm license. So hopefully everyone knows that in North Carolina, no one, whether you're a person or an entity, can get paid commissions from real estate without a license. I've run into, in fact, we had a fairly high producing agent in Fayetteville join, and when she wanted to get paid to her entity, she was getting frustrated because we kept asking for a firm license, and she didn't understand why, because her old firm had just paid her entity without one. So we explained that, hey, don't tell anyone else that, because that will absolutely get you in trouble. You've got to have a firm license. So of course, once we explained it, it's a fairly quick process. The Real Estate Commission is now finally caught up to this century, and you can submit this online. Unfortunately, the way the system works now, you have to create an account as if you are setting up a new firm in order to see the form. But you go through this process. It's fairly straightforward. You can check the requirements here, which this is what the paper form used to look like. So apparently now the paper form is a reference document, and it just goes through what you need. You'll designate yourself, presumably, assuming all of you are talking about setting up a firm just for you. You designate yourself as the qualifying broker of the firm. Of course, the qualifying broker is the licensee who enables the firm to do business in the state. Depending on your business structure, you'll have to provide some information on managers, partners, things like that. And so here's the question that's important on here. Question 11 will determine whether or not you need to designate yourself as a broker in charge. So if you, let's see, I always forget. If you answered yes to all three questions, you do not need to be a broker in charge. So because a lot of people just assume that you've got to be a BIC if you have a firm. If you can answer yes to all three of these questions, that basically you're just doing it for tax purposes. The qualifying broker is the only person affiliated with the firm. And is it being created solely for the purpose of receiving commissions? So if you answer yes to all three, you do not need to be a broker in charge. If you answer no to any of those, then you will. Like if you want to form this entity so that you can start a team, you'll need to be the broker in charge, because for your team members to advertise your firm's branding. So for example, my team was a firm. Before I came to Fathom, I had my own small firm. We were the Capital Group. If you want to have team members advertise the Capital Group under you while at Fathom, they've got to be affiliated with both firms. So you'll want to, really make sure that you pay attention to those questions and think about what you intend to use your firm for when this is done. But again, answer yes to all three. Don't worry about BIC. You'll just be the qualifying broker. There won't be a broker in charge. If you answer no to any of those, then you'll want to take a look at the schedule for the broker in charge course, which is also here. Now, I believe, I'm not sure if it's all online now. At one point, so when I took it, it was all in person. It was 12 hours in person over 2 days. At one point, they had changed it so that 8 hours were online and 4 hours were still in person. I'm not sure exactly what the current setup is right now, but 12-hour course. You can declare yourself broker in charge before taking the course. Okay, so someone just chimed in on the chat here and said it's all online now. So that should make it a lot easier for folks. But so yeah, you can declare yourself broker in charge and then take the course. I think you have either 120 or 180 days from the time you declare yourself BIC to take the course. Otherwise, you get removed as broker in charge. Oh, it's good to have someone taking the class right now. So Debbie said that it is 120 days. So yeah, to be BIC eligible, you have to have 2 years of full-time equivalent experience. Yes. So to be BIC eligible, they do. Again, it's been a long time since I filled that out, but yeah, there is an application of sorts that'll ask you to list your experience. They will review that, make sure, like if you've been in business for 2 years but haven't sold a home, they're probably going to ask, well, how are you considering yourself to have full-time experience? So yeah, they definitely, there is a process to be approved as a BIC more than just the class. And yes, it's that 2 years experience. Another thing you might want to do is file for an assumed name or a doing business as, a DBA. Super easy. You can do that. Honestly, you can probably do it online again, like most things now. I've always gone down and done it in person because then they hand you a receipt and it's literally done immediately. But if you want to use any name other than the legal name of your entity, because sometimes, you don't get creative enough when you're creating your entity. You just want to get it done, and then you decide you want to use something else. So and the example I have here, the name of my corporation is actually Capital Group RDU Inc. But I didn't want to use Capital Group RDU Inc. on all my marketing, so I filed the assumed name, The Capital Group. Super easy. 26 bucks, it never expires. You own that DBA, and they finally have connected the Register of Deeds to the Secretary of State. So when you are filing this assumed name, you can make it effective for all 100 counties. It used to be that you would need to file one of these in each county where you were doing business. They've made that a lot easier. Let's see. Here's the actual form. Again, it's 2 pages. So super simple form. You'll just want to do a search. They've got a link on here where you can do a search to make sure no one else is already using that name. Because obviously that's typically the catch is, if someone else is already using it. And then, like I said, check that box. It's good for all 100 counties. So you don't have to worry if, Triangle MLS decides to buy out Canopy and we suddenly, have all the way to Asheville. You don't have to worry about filing this in any new counties. You're covered everywhere in the state. And then the last step, this is for Fathom. So this is, because the point for most people is you want to be able to get paid as a business entity. So in order to let Fathom know that we should be paying this entity instead of you just need to go fill out this form on Fathom Wiki, and it's going to ask for copies of the documents we just went over. So I've got the right password saved. Um, so yeah, you'll fill out this form. It's going to ask for a copy of your firm license and your EIN. And then of course the W-9 is going to have your EIN on it, and you can just get a blank W-9 online from the IRS, fill in your information. So pretty straightforward. Again, that's why you don't need to go out and pay someone to do this for you. Literally, if you just go through the steps and follow the links on this page, you can get everything done. And of course, that disclaimer again, talk to your accountant or CPA before you start getting paid as an entity. It's very easy to make mistakes on your taxes and very hard to fix them after the fact. So make sure you don't just go out and do this on your own and then think you're going to do your taxes on your own with no issues.
I have a question, Aaron.
Go for it.
What happens to the contracts that we are already in? So right now I do not have an entity, and my contracts are closing in January, February, March, April, and I create an entity today. So can those be paid to the entity?
Yes, because
Okay.
the brokerage is still Fathom Realty. So yes, all that's changing is who gets paid at the
Got you.
end. So now I will let you know, you want to submit that Fathom Wiki form, you don't try and submit that the day before closing. Just
Yeah,
FYI,
yeah, of
you know,
course.
I'd give them a week or two just to make sure they can get it all the way through the process. But yeah, as soon as that's submitted, there's no requirement that the firm had to exist before you went under contract or anything like that.
Thanks. And the name, so the name of the entity is the last step in the process, right? So first that is the last step in the process, correct?
I'm sorry, say that again?
The name of the entity, if you want to have any, that is the last step in the process. Before that, you get your tax identification number, all that step is
Well,
before.
so when you fill out the form for the Secretary of State, you will have to pick a name. So
Okay.
yeah, you'll in that first step, you will be picking, My Realty Company LLC or whatever it's going to be. Now, it doesn't
Okay.
necessarily have to be the one that you advertise. You can pick whatever you want for the name of an LLC or a corporation, and then, if you just want to get that part done for the taxes, you can down here with the assumed name for 26 bucks, you can take it and make it whatever you want. So, mine, yes, it goes from Capital Group RDU to the Capital Group. It could have gone from Capital Group RDU to, whatever, North Carolina Realty Team. They don't have to be, in any way related to the original name. Okay. Apparently the 12-hour bit course counts as a CE elective. I'm not sure if I remember that. Well, any questions from anyone else? I mean, like I said, it's
Uh,
a pretty
could you?
straightforward process. It's not super complicated.
I know it's a CPA question, but from your experience, could you share some of the tax advantages of creating a S corp versus LLC, or have not having an entity at all? So I do not have
Yeah,
an entity at all. This is my first year, and I will be paying some exorbitant taxes this year. I know about it.
right.
Uh, so the difference between S corp LLC, just from your experience, not a tax advice as such.
So my understanding is that one of the main advantages of the S corp versus the LLC is being able to avoid some of the self-employment taxes, because you are able to take some money out of the corporation as, um, I guess, just like an owner draw. I forget if there's some other name for it. I don't think they're considered anything like dividends, but you are able to get some money out of the corporation without distribution, owner distribution. So you can get some money out without paying the self-employment taxes, although it's still personal income and you pay taxes on it. You pay your regular income taxes. I think you just get to avoid the FICA taxes on that money. And that's, I don't know if there's a particular break-even point where it makes sense to go with one versus the other. I think the LLC taxes are probably simpler. And so I think a lot of people go the LLC route because it's not quite as complicated. But I think that is probably the reason a person might choose an S corp over the LLC. So Matt was asking if an LLC can file as an S corp. I think the idea is that they're both disregarded entities. They're both passed through as far as the IRS is concerned. So I don't know that for sure. So with regards to advertising, can I advertise using my entity business name if not designate myself BIC? I think if you want to be 100% safe, you should designate yourself BIC if you want to advertise your entity rather than your name. I'm not sure I've ever heard 100% for sure, but if you want to be safe, go ahead and designate yourself BIC. It's not that difficult, you know. You just go through the class, and just to clarify, you know, you always do still use the Fathom logo because Fathom is always still the brokerage. It's actually, you know, the brokerage of record on agency agreements and contracts. So, you know, our logo still goes on there to identify us as the broker, but you're welcome to lead with your own branding. So that's, well, I won't go digging through all my files right here at the moment, but when I was actually selling, my Capital Group signs, you know, that they said Capital Group, big Capital Group logo, you know, whatever, name and phone number. And then at the bottom, it said powered by and the Fathom Realty logo. So lead with your own brand, but the Fathom logo's got to be on there still. Sure thing. Any other questions? What's that? Yes, you can have more than one firm. The catch is a broker in charge can only be BIC of one physical location. So if you had, I don't know, 3 firms for whatever reason, actually at various points I've been BIC of as many as 3 or 4 firms, but they all had the same address. So multiple firms can share the same address. You can be BIC of multiple firms at that address, but you couldn't be a BIC of a firm here and then BIC of another firm in North Raleigh. All right, well, if y'all don't have anything else, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.